So we've had one or two dropouts today, unfortunately. People do have real lives, it appears. So I'm afraid it's on to me. What I suggest we do, we keep all of them to 15 minutes. We all get the same, but instead of breaking for lunch early, when this is done, we have 15-minute group dialogue. How does that sound? Great, okay. So for me, the most fundamental thing is not information, but interaction. This is not just a philosophical point, but I believe the key to how to deal with information, rich, deep interaction. I'll be talking about three things today: my passion product and project author, a word processor, the need for advanced document formats, but first I'd like to talk about citations. And it's just such a wonderful feeling to talk about it now, considering who has gone before and how much synergy there is in the room. It's just incredible. Citations. I'm going to read this out loud because it's so cool. When I was looking for the history of citations, I couldn't find much. It's really bizarre. But then this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful quote. When you cite a source, you show how your voice enters into an intellectual conversation and you demonstrate your link to the community within which you work. When we were all studying, citations was some crap you put at the end, right? And how many of teachers in the room was ever taught has properly looked at the bibliography, made sure they linked to the text, and checked that the words were like? How many have done that?
All the time.
All the time. So this is you read all your students proper citations?
No, what I'm saying is any kind of reading, whether it's scholarly work or student work, we would read the citations and all that. I think that's common.
A medal for this man. So you all read all the citations and all student work. You read everything. That's phenomenal. I really couldn't be bothered myself. I mean, look at that number, right? It comes in a printed, tiny little thing, and then you have to go to the back, and it's got things, and then it's another book. You have to look it up. No. I'm just going to be honest with that. But to mirror so much of the earlier work, and specifically what Valerie was talking about, Doug's work, I think we all share a need and a passion for absolute deep citations. And this is kind of a beginning of what we mean by this. Fast and flowing to interact with. I know that Doug is famous for not being interested in ease of use, but that's only for the initial couple of seconds. He wanted us to be fighter pilots going through cyberspace. So you have to have fast and flowing interactions. McLuhan said, if you take one image and then another image, Mark, what happens? That's not the quote I'm thinking about, but you go from still images to a movie, right? So speed changes the entire media, so it has to be smooth. Quick to create, quick to check, and this is what we were talking about earlier. When you're reading something, if there's an assertion made, if you can instantly check whether that is bullshit, lying, misunderstood, misquoted, not properly cited, that has to be key in the future. Rich interactions is kind of the level above that, so I guess I should have flipped them. But high resolution addressability, Valerie also talked about earlier. What we have today to link to an entire document is just insanity. You should be able to link to a specific paragraph at least, or a sentence, so that when someone follows that link, I mean, it's like, the citation nonsense. You link to a book. You're going to, anyway, let me not waste time. I also have only 10 minutes. Link types. A lot of this stuff is Doug, it's a lot of Ted, it's a lot of stuff from technology, right, with link types and so on. Most of it seems to have died. All we have is basic, web links is not even a link. It's an address, and you don't know what's on the other side, so let's not even get into that language, but we should be able to take their stuff into academia, because the reason I talk about citations and not hyperlinks is academia at least has a pretense of linking together the knowledge. That's why we're using this language. Any questions or comments on this? Because this is just too important to skip over. And this is another really, really important one. And it's so beautiful, again, to hear so much about it this morning. The difference, if you have a piece of paper, the substrate is just a neutral place, whatever marking mechanism can put stuff. But with digital, I can't think of a better word than soil, because that's where things grow. If you don't have a rich interactive soil, your text, your little black marks, can't do anything. So the document format is not some geeky nonsense. We've had a couple of discussions this morning already that it makes me weak in the knees with joy. We have to find out how to go further. My favorite case study is Sam and me. We often talk, and we have very different ideas what to do. I'm going to show you some very quick demos of Author. Let's say that you're all Author users, because I hope you will be. You write a document, you send it to Sam, who's made this amazing 3D concept map. He will take that text, put it all over the place, do crazy things with it, make some edits, send it back. You can still read that document. Furthermore, when you send it back to Sam, all the 3D nonsense will be there. Yeah, hi, Huria. I know. And similarly, Adriana can, with this system, he can take that document and open it in Ginkgo, and it'll be in a completely different view. And I don't need to know, as the developer author, I don't even know that he exists. We're talking about developing a hugely inefficient model. Anybody can add to the header and saying, in plain English, hello, technical person, I've added so-and-so, this and this does this, and then it can either go back and not be understood, and you still read the basics, or you can have the added features. So that's the key. Add new functionality without losing old. So in my remaining 5 minutes, Author. The etymology of author is the same as augment, so you can guess where I got my inspiration from. Both words originally meant to enlarge, to make something big. Author is initially for students and teachers, because as a teacher, I hate to read boring papers, but I need to know if they're talking clearly or not. So we want to build reading systems that are powerful. As a student, I want to be able to write with credibility. And a lot of that is citations. Of note, Author is for high-performance users. How many people in here, if you do copy, click on an icon? Oh, good. How many do a keyboard shortcut to copy? Okay, great. You're all power users. There is no visible interface in Author because it doesn't need to be. So Author iOS exists. It's available on the App Store. It's free. You pay some piddling little amount to be able to export in academic formats. I would absolutely love all of your feedback. Here's two-minute demos.
Closer, you'll notice that your parent chain has one single
We have
carbon.
another one
This
running in the
one
background.
carbon gives me a first name of meth. And since I cannot have any double bonds on a...
There we go. That was interesting. Ghost in the machine, huh? Okay. When you open a document in Author, it looks much like any digital book with a warm white background. Swipe to scroll and notice how the paragraphs don't get cut at the top of the screen. Tap in the lower half of a margin to go down a full screen, or on the top to go back up. Tap any text to look the text up in references. Search the web, or search within the document. When you search within the document, you can tap in the margin to dismiss the search results, or tap on a sentence to jump to it. You can pinch vertically to collapse the document and only see headings. Pinch more to see less headings, and pinch back out to see more. Tap in the margin to dismiss this view, or tap on a heading to jump to it. When you come across a citation, indicated with a small asterisk, which becomes a number on export, you can tap on the cited text, and you then get the citation window. Here you can read more about the citation, tap to visit the source of the text, and even search the web for quoted text so you can see where else the text appears. Notice how there are no visible interface elements on the screen. Tap anywhere to see controls at the top and at the bottom of the screen. You can tap the name of the document to flip it over and see information about the document. There will be more information here in the future. Tap anywhere to flip back. When you want to edit the document, tap Edit at the bottom of the screen. You're now in the edit mode and the page is changed to a white background, like with most word processors. And then 2 minutes on editing. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to show you a 1-minute demo of the OS 10 version, which is an early struggling mode, but at least you get an idea what it looks like. The first thing you may notice about Author is its very simple interface, but it's integrated with Liquid, so you can select any text and have access to a wide variety of commands like Wikipedia, etymology, and so on. To search for text in the document, select it, Command F, the text goes into the search dialog. When you hit enter, you get every sentence with that text. You can choose to escape, click in the margin, or you can click on any of the instances to jump to that section. To add a citation in Author from a web page, select the text, go to the web page, and select the relevant text. When you do Command T for citation, you can then choose from clipboard, all the relevant text is inserted, click Save, and you now have a full web-based citation. You can also do the same from Amazon and soon from Mendeley. The reason it's called iOS X is because it's iOS and OS 10. Questions, please. Yes. Can we use that one?
I know from last year before the Future Text, you did a whip round for some of the features that you built in. And you and I Skyped about Liquid in the interface. So to what extent was this driven by requirements capture for how those of us who really work with text use text so that it's bottom up rather than top down, which is the big flaws, you know, in app development?
I did add a feature to Liquid because of you.
Yeah, which I use daily. Thank you.
It's Liquid is the second half of this. It's a tool you can use in all the apps on your Mac. Do a keyboard shortcut like Command Space. You get that little toolbar you saw. Keyboard shortcuts. What I did was to add spacebar to the Google Scholar. I like to add features, but a bit like Adriano, I'm a control freak in the beginning. I want this to be open. I want it to be open source, but I think there has to be an incubation period. So it's a matter of having kind of a consensus of what we should add. Some of it are very Dougian, of course, like having the view spec, which is essentially what the find is. I mean, I'm just so proud of this one little feature. When you want to find a word in the document, normally you have to select the word, copy it, do Command F, paste, right? Here, we do Command F. If it's selected, it automatically puts the text in. Little things like that, right? We have lots of ideas, but the joy to be able to actually do that is tremendous. So it varies, is my answer.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
To what extent was this driven by elegance? Because I know the little features like Liquid is ever so elegant that every time I use it, that little flip for the different functions is just beautiful.
You should maybe sit here in the PR department.
I did have advertising agencies. I did do this for a living.
It's actually a very good question because my favorite Steve Jobs quote, and I can't remember where I heard it, was he was talking about Scully being too interested in the features. And it's the polish, it's the actual use, right? So with Liquid, when you can all check it out if you want, but when you do an action to open a web page, it dismisses like this. If you copy, it dismisses like that, right? Because I think it's insane that we have these small spaces to work in, so it needs to feel tactile. So it's the same thing here with, it didn't have a window bar until you need the window bar. If you're actually writing, you do a control click. It shows you all the keyboard shortcuts because we don't want you to do control click. I need 2 more questions, otherwise there's no lunch. Okay, yes.
So earlier you made reference to weaving Sam's document, his mental map, on top of your document. I didn't see anything in that interface that looked like it was even close to doing something like that.
Sam is my muse, right? But I have to limit myself. I've paid for this myself, and I'm suffering for it, like a lot of us have for our work. So it's a common shared pain. What Sam's talking about, I want to do. But first, I just want to have a single user word processor, not even collaborative, that one student can write a good paper that one teacher can read quickly. Once we have some traction with that workflow, because without a workflow, a tool is nothing, right? Then we can go crazy with stretching it out in 3D space and doing that. So don't worry, Sam and I are working on it. Okay. There was that. Yeah, Valerie, please.
A comment about one of the first things that you said, which was Doug was often talking about that he felt stifled by the idea of easy to use, and I had him talk quite a bit about that, so I wanted to share it with this group.
Oh,
because
great,
you
thank
had
you.
brought it up. And one of the things that he was reacting to the fact that when he developed, he with Bill developed a 3-button mouse, that when it went to commercialization in Apple, they were like, no, that's too hard to use, 1 button, no, that's too hard to use. So he wasn't actually against ease of use. What he was against was the dumbing down of hardware and software in the name of easy to use.
Absolutely.
And I think that what you've done is a beautiful integration of a lot of complex features in a very elegant way.
Oh, thank you. I think there was a question on this side. Was it maybe Kenan?
So first of all, Frode, it is such a beautiful and elegant piece of software and interface, and it has your signature on it. It's just really lovely. So imagining that this works well and that you get it out into the world, sort of touching on what Adriana said, there's an issue I see to look at and forestall, and that is whose truth is there. And so an example of this is I was at an aerospace conference, and there was a very intellectual person who was, I asked him about climate change because he had a very negative view about it. And his point was, he said, well, you know, I heard a radio interview, and there's this information about the ice shelves are getting thicker, and I don't know who's giving the information. And so if you are wanting to forestall a binary world in the future, there will need to be something such that those who are writing to it and linking out, that all voices are heard. And I just want to put a flag in there and ask you, what are you planning on doing so that it's not considered an intellectual truth?
I think that's absolutely maybe the most important thing that's coming out today, that, you know, text isn't truth. Like if a photograph never lies, that's rubbish. Text lies too. Technically, what we're looking at is having, inside modern document formats, you can have lots of different things. They're packages. So at least we want to have different strands. So you have, you know, Sam is talking very much about different paths to the text. I mean, that goes all the way back to Vannevar Bush, of course. You know, that the path itself is important. There should be different paths. A lot of this, I have no idea. It's not for me to know. That's why we're all coming together. But if we have new document formats, I can do this, I can make something, you can hate it, but you can use a different tool, and you don't have to worry about the Microsoft Word lock-in or the PDF nonsense. You can do what you want. So I think it's a great issue, but I'm not going to pretend I have a 30-second reply to it now. Final question. Oh, mail in, of course.
Hi, this is great, and I'm inspired to talk because of what Kenan said. So what I'm working on is the people-centered internet, which is sort of the internet of the people rather than internet of the things. And we are really starting to grapple with this, but one of the thoughts that we had coming out of where we came from is that it's community-based, that it's not individual-based, that the people-centered internet is really communities coming together with their common language, but also each person is part of many communities, so that in a way, the technology is allowing us to kind of go back to the future in the old kind of way, but instead of only having one village, we have many, many villages, and there are different norms in the different villages that we exist in. So that's the thinking that we're getting, and this is tied to what's actually happening with the U.S. State Department pushing Global Connect. So Global Connect is an endeavor to bring 1.5 billion people to the internet. But through the people-centered internet, we've been able to push for inclusivity and respect and diversity and openness and transparency. So we're at such a fragile point right now where we can shift away from the one view of the world to the many views of the world. And this battle of ideas is actually going to take place in the next 2 years, because the World Bank has declared 2016 the year of Internet for Development. And with the US State Department pushing for Global Connect, many of these issues are actually going to get somewhat set on a trajectory in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Malin. Thank you, everybody. And now it's lunch. I'll put out the slide for that. Oops. There we are. Okay, there will be lunch out there, and see you back